Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'm hoping that you enjoy this session or podcast, this part. This one we did testimonials. So, me, Levi, and Shelby, we all decided to just tell you, my fellow Spuds, about how we became Christians and just the stuff that we struggled with in life. And in no way have we overcome, but we have looked to Jesus. We've looked to our relationship with God, and we wanted you to know a little bit more about us. And our walk with God. For anyone tuning in, if this is the first time, this is very different than the rest of my channel. I'm just going to tell you when I'm being goofy and I'm showing you my comedy side. I'm not going to mention. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's not my place when I'm in comedy mode to share. I'm not going to push anyone away by I'm not going to try to make you feel pressured either way. But I want this on here because this is something I like to share, and this is who I am. And not only do I have a comedy side, I do believe heavily in Jesus Christ and the Bible. And so for anyone who wants to listen in, I welcome you with open arms, and you can listen. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with any of this, don't abandon me just because you don't agree. I would just say, just square this away and just say, yep, I don't want nothing to do with this. I will have more comedy stuff coming out shortly. I always will try to give you that other content, but this is something that I felt I shouldn't hide. So with the one side of me, I also have this side. So without further ado, I will get into our podcast. And it actually worked this time. The mics worked. I'm not going to say it's the best quality of sound, but it is very much listenable. Listenable? You can listen to it. So I'm going to stop talking. Here we go. All right. So how do we want to start?
You want to go first?
I kind of have a couple different testimonies. Like I was raised in church, so I was kind of always surrounded by the Word of God. I don't think I really came into like a full understanding of it till I was probably 15 or 16. My first baptism was 13, and I feel like I did that kind of out of pressure, So I was kind of like, I was raised in a Baptist church. It was just a very weird environment. I kind of like walked away from it all for a while just because I felt like overwhelmed with it. Like I was making choices that other people wanted me to make and kind of not doing what I wanted to do or thinking outside of the box the way I wanted to. So I kind of felt like suffocated just by the Christian faith for a long time, especially because I was going through a lot, and like it seemed like people only wanted to preach like hellfire and brimstone to me all the time, and like that's just not the kind of thing I needed at the moment. So that's kind of the reason I walked away initially. When I did come back, it was at Freedom Rock, the old Cape First youth group. I started doing like soundboard and stuff there, and I had a very real experience with God during worship, and like I just kind of like my heart just kind of like opened up to this like idea of like compassion, and I think that's kind of like where the root started for me, and I really started to understand my faith a little more, after kind of coming to that realization that Christ is compassion, I think, and definitely like the more you study that, like the more you see like the Christian faith as a whole can be like very challenging at times for people because they don't see that aspect. They don't see like the compassion side as much as people who have experienced that do. So that's kind of like I really got into that for a while. And man, I went there for 4 or 5 years. My father started having health issues, and I was working a lot, so I kind of stepped away from it all for a while. Me and my dad actually went through a bad fallout, a couple years before he died. And he went through a lot, man. Like, it changed my life. He always tried to take us to church and everything, but he just kind of like fell off. He had a bad accident. He fell through a roof, shattered his arm, had multiple surgeries. He started overdosing on opioids and all kinds of crazy stuff, which eventually led him to having a stroke. And that kind of like, I was mad at God for a while, I won't lie. I was going through a lot already, being a single dad, and, trying to take my dad to therapy and take care of my dad on top of working, and all of this was just a hurricane, And, my mom kind of took a lot of, like, the impact from that situation, too, because she, they were together for, married 30 years, so it was really hard on her to, like, just watch him have that downward spiral and not being able to do anything about it. So I think my testimony now kind of comes from being able to trust God, even though I'm mad at him, for the way things happened in my life. And you look back on things and realize they happened for a reason. Like, when it's somebody's time to go, it's somebody's time to go. And you can't change that. But just in the past, like, few years, I'm, like, finding my feet again. And, like, it's actually propelled me, to kind of, like, pick up my cross a little more and follow Christ a little more, Like, you find yourself, like, when you're grieving, and heartbroken, like, you really do, like, encounter God in a different way. And it's really hard to explain unless you've been there. Like, when you're at your lowest, man, like, and you don't have anyone, and, like, you can't explain yourself to anyone, like, and you don't have anywhere else to turn, you really do, like, have a relationship with God at that point. And I don't think a lot of Christians have been to that low point yet, where they have absolutely nothing else than a relationship, with God. And that's kind of like my perspective on God, like, I see him from this perspective of just being dead on the floor looking up, and, like, no way out kind of thing. So my testimony is kind of like, if I didn't have my faith in God, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. It got really bad for a while. I wanted to end my life. I didn't want to be here. I was tired of it. I was tired of fighting, tired of dealing with all of these things that were happening in my life. I was under attack, like, every freaking day for a long time. And, like, I still deal with it sometimes. Like, I have bad anxiety. I have depression. I've dealt with those things my whole life. But, like, 2 years ago, man, like, you wouldn't have recognized me. Like, I was angry at everybody. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I had so much going on, just, I was weighed down. And God brought me out of that eventually, It just took a lot. It took a lot of me seeking God, rather than seeking my own self-destruction, which I'm really good at. So I kind of, like, had to shift my perspective of the way I thought life was supposed to be, and kind of shift my eyes, gear my eyes, to the heavens, and God will show you things, if you look, there's signs, there's wonders, you see all of it, it's out there if you're looking for it. And I think a lot of that too kind of, like, helps me keep my feet on the ground, knowing that he is there. He's a real God. He's still on his throne no matter what we're going through. So My testimony, to sum it up, I would say, no matter what kind of roller coaster or bad spot you're at in your life, is understanding that He's always there. I've lost people in my life. I've lost relationships. The devil has come in and attacked me multiple times in that area, and he knows. He knows when I have joy in my life, and he tries everything in his power to ruin it.
Yeah. Devil loves doing that.
Yeah, he does, man. And and there's things that are out of your control. Like, you can't control what other people do to you. You can't control their choices. And I'm not all perfect either. Like, I've yelled at people and I've gotten mad at people, over stupid things, and that's part of life. Like, when you're going through it, like going through all this stuff with my youngest son, with his kidney transplant, dude, like, the most stressful thing to watch your child go through all of it, Just multiple surgeries, multiple hospital visits, and I'm here full custody of another kid who I can't give all my attention to, and he's going through all this stuff, and I'm working a full-time job, and I'm carrying all this around, and like, if I didn't have God, I would have walked away. I really would have. A long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of end it there. There's definitely more, but I won't go over my entire life story.
No, yeah. Yeah, this is whatever I thank you for sharing. I mean, I this is just about our testimony. This is nothing that you're not comfortable on sharing. The big thing with the testimony is we should feel boldened to want to share this with everyone, because if God is really working in our life, there is things that you should want to say. But now, your relation, and this is the one thing that I wanted to say with Joshua Sawyer, is like, because like he was so afraid of sharing, and it's like, look, you don't have. It's not about sharing all the intimate parts. That's between you and God.
That's right.
Like, it's just getting other people to see, because like, if we have these reservations that God is real, and we know God's real, and we've have these real life, like, things that other people don't maybe understand, of these real, like, situations where we know God did bless us, or we could feel God's hand. Well, if we're wanting to explain God to other people, but we're not also, because I think we always have to rein it back in, how did God affect us in our life? If we're not sharing that, then how are we going to get them to understand about a relationship? Because we can't give them our faith. We can only share our faith with you and say that God wants not the same faith, in the sense, my relationship is personal with God. He wants that same personal relationship with you.
Right.
It's not going to look... Now, you can always... And this is just like how couples... again, God is not in like a sexual relationship with us, but God has given us a picture of relationships to give us because He's a spiritual relationship, but He gives us these truths, and He always usually reins it back in by sharing us like real relationships and like the correlation between them. When you look in the generalities, you can go, oh, and that's where these jokes come from. Everyone makes the jokes about their wives. Everyone makes the jokes about their husband. And there's lots of things you can share in faith, where me and Levi, on the surface, there's many things of our faith that should be almost cooker cut. There's things that are exactly the same, but it's not the same relationship with God, because I'm not Levi. Levi's not me. There's things that are similar, but there isn't completely similarities. It's a unique relationship.
Yeah, there's definitely things in my life that only God knows, Like,
exactly.
I'll never tell anybody,
No.
And that's the way it should be, You shouldn't, like, spit out all your regrets and information out there all the time. I'm just letting people know that I'm human. I come from a very human background, and that I've failed miserably time after time, and the
Mhm.
only thing that has kept me going is my faith in God, and that's definitely a Holy Spirit thing too.
Mhm.
Like you have to put your trust in God and let Him lead and direct you, even when things are, well, especially when things are out of your control. That's when you should do it most.
But like with our relationship with Him, He wants, we have to, as believers, realize that it's just a walk that we have to do daily, and it doesn't. There has to be some sacrifice. If you think Christianity is just this happy-go-lucky, we're in a fairy tale land,
It's the complete opposite.
It's not. But not that there isn't joy by following God.
That's right.
But
we have joy in our suffering.
But happiness is not the same thing as joy.
That's right.
God promises us if we serve Him that He's offering us a joy, and I think this is what if you really are a believer and you're not letting the world, maybe that's not the right, not a believer, but if you're not letting the devil whisper in your ear and you're just focusing on God, you can see that joy is not happiness. Joy means you understand what's going on, but you realize how blessed you are.
Yeah.
That's the fulfillment that God can give you, because even though we could have a bad day, if you're keeping your eyes on Jesus, you'll know, look,
right.
This might be a bad day today, but it's not going to always be this way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's it kind of like falls in line with like seeing with your spiritual eyes. Like God gives us that gift. When we receive the Holy Spirit, we're open to seeing things that non-believers don't see.
And like with joy, like again, God has not promised us a happy life, but He's promising us joy in the fact of knowing that even like if you're having a horrible day, you have opportunities to maybe, instead of just thinking about yourself, if you're keeping your eye, now of course sometimes you're going to fall and not do this, but some of these stories you hear, it really are the people that have their eyes, these people that are having, like, they just look down, like they have been kicked around, like either family members have died, they lose their jobs, and like, but yet if they get an opportunity, they will still share that hope that they have, because it can always be worse. And at the end of the day, regardless of how bad your life is, if we really do believe that there is an afterlife, that there's more to this than what we have, then really that's why, like I said in last week about like when Jesus commanded about hating your family, your life, it's not about He wants us to have those special bonds, but He's saying is don't overcomplicate, because I see this with atheists where they're just like, well, God isn't good because He lets bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is God isn't here to make us happy.
Yeah.
Because that isn't what God's trying to show. He wants us to understand what love is. And to understand love, this is, because maybe everyone else has a different, but like the more I've searched, we really are the true representation of love. Because we are something that should be unlovable.
Yeah.
We'll never really love God the way He deserves to be loved.
Yeah.
But yet He has given us a way to be loved. And so when you look at life, bad things happen to us. But God's never said He's fair. He's just. Because He says, look, if life is treating you horrible, look, I'm still going to be here. If you really believe, know that the last breath you breathe on earth is not the last of you. I am going to remember you. I have a place for you. And that is where you will really get your reward. And where you will have anything you thought you got short-sighted on, anything that you got done dirty on, that He's like, I'm not going to do you dirty. I'm the great promiser. Now my promise is of hope. You have to trust me. And of course that's always hard to do, because we look at the world and the world just wants to screw you over. There is no trusting.
It's hard to not look at the storm sometimes, for sure.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for your testimony. I like it. I unless Levi, you want to go, I can go.
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. So I'm really a windbag. So let's see. I got me some notes. So let's see if I'm not. I don't want to go too long, because then I just feel like I'm just listening, like I'm just talking to talk. So to give a little backstory of myself, I'm the youngest of 4 children. So I have 3 older sisters. Mom and dad just kept having babies. Dad kept waiting to have a son, and it was strike 1, strike 2, and then strike 3. Well, actually, before Jen, my youngest older sister, there was 2 other babies, but they were miscarriages. So out of 6 children, 2 that didn't make it, Dad finally got a boy. So that's just a little bit of that. So, and I only say that because before there was me, my parents were loosely, like, Dad was raised Catholicism. He went to Catholic church. That's where he went to school, because he didn't go to public school. He was in private school his whole life. And he was taught by nuns, where they smack you with the ruler and everything. So he got the whole deal, the whole 9 yards of Catholicism. Sometime when my sisters were young, well, first off, my mom was religious or spiritual, but like her parents didn't really do religion. Like, it was not like God's bad, but it was just like, it's just kind of, you take it as it is. Yeah. And there was, and I could be misquoting, like, because I do think, like, my Aunt Lily Bell, I think she was spiritual. I even think one of my aunts said that they had, like, ESP and stuff like that. So I don't really know. Me being young, I might be misquoting. I don't really know, in the sense of, like, Mom never, all I know is Mom and Dad became Baptist. They were doing First Baptist before I was born. And they did that for a while. And then somewhere along the lines, Dad finally got tired of doing Baptist, and he wanted to go back to being Catholic. And then when I finally was born, they had stopped going, because they had moved. Like, the year before I was born, they had moved to a whole other part of the city. So they were away from the church, and they didn't want to commute to that church. So they just didn't say nothing to the church. Like, the church was like, one day they were there, the next day they could have been dead. Like, they just didn't want to talk. Like, it was like, we're moving away. The church, because I guess once before they had moved, and the church made a big deal about, like, we still want you, and, like, they made Dad feel so bad that he didn't move for an extra year one time, because he did declare bankruptcy. So, like, this time, they just dropped off the face of the earth. They just didn't talk to the congregation. They're just like, we're gone.
Head to the cave, boys.
So as far as that church went, they're just like, one day, the James family just didn't show up. Like, they're gone. The rapture happened, but no. So
only for the James family.
Just for the James family.
So growing up, they didn't really do religion. Not that neither of them, like, Mom and Dad's always believed in God, but they just didn't go. And so when I was about, I want to say about 7-ish, Dad finally had been talking to Mom, and like, they didn't do, like, we barely, like, I knew a little, like, they talked, you know, I did the little, like, Jesus songs, and I read Jesus storybooks and stuff like that. But, like, it wasn't until I was, like, 8 that Dad was like, all right, boy, you got to decide. So, without them having a church, Dad was like, I'm just going to pick a random Catholic church. We're going to go there. You're going to tell me what you think. And then we'll pick a random First Baptist church, and you'll go with your mom. And you can decide which religion you want to pick at 8. Now, if Mom and Dad is listening, or my sisters are listening, I'll tell you this. If it went down different than that, I don't remember it any other way. That's how I remember it going. So I may be a liar, but I really think that's how it went. Because, yeah, they decided it was 8. I might have been 9, but so I went to both. And I think Dad took me to the Baptist church first, I want to say. And I went with Mom, and Dad didn't come. He just dropped me and Mom off. So, of course, we knew nobody. I'm just a 9-year-old. All I can remember from the church was it was really loud. I got yelled at a little bit, and then there was a lot of singing. And then they talked a lot. And then the next time we went, Dad took me the next Sunday, and we went to a Catholic church, and it was very quiet. And even though I was kind of a rambunctious kid, I kind of liked the Catholic service, and I liked some of their songs better than the other one. Maybe it was just because they had all the pipe organs, and it just looked really pretty in the Catholic church versus the Baptist church.
It's really good shit.
And then, of course, Dad, I really feel Dad kind of zoned it in, because we didn't have a car, and we lived in St. Louis, so we took the bus everywhere. And so, when we went, Dad had us stop at McDonald's afterwards. And, like, that was a big thing. Like, Mom cooked every time. So I almost feel like I was half in it for the McDonald's and half in it just because I liked the format as a 9-year-old, 8-year-old kid. So I just was like, yeah, because, you can pick at 9 and you really know. So I picked Catholicism, and so that's how I was introduced into my first church services.
Catholicism and Big Macs.
Yes. So, let's see. So, and that's where I finally got my understanding of, like, heaven, hell. It wasn't until way longer that I didn't realize, like the Bible, because the way they do it in Catholic Church, and, they do that, like, the altar boys they'll hold the book, and, like, the priest they'll have just regular people from, like, that, they're the, what do you call them? They're not elders at Catholic. I've already deleted what they're called.
I know what you mean.
But they'll come forward, and then they're the ones that'll do, like, a first reading from this or a reading from Paul. And, like, it wasn't until way later that I even realized that those were just the books of the Bible. Because that was, like, never really said. Like, they'd be like, a reading from Paul. And, like, I wouldn't realize, like, oh, that's Romans, or that's the current, like, it was never really broke down to me. So, like, I'd be like, who are these people we're reading from? Why is there letters? So, I don't know. These are just thoughts of when I was growing up. But, like, all I can say for that is when I first, I thought of God in, like, he kind of was like Santa Claus to me, in the sense, and I say this joke, but, like, my understanding of him, it was kind of the same. Like it was like, he's watching you when you're sleeping. He knows if you've been naughty or nice. If you're good, he'll reward you. If you're not, you'll get a lump of coal. There was just a lot of parallels.
He knows every time that you have diarrhea.
It just felt like I got the concept, and it, like, gave me this, like, ideal of, I understood what sin was, and I understood what being good and what being bad was, or, like, Mom and Dad are mad at me if I do these things and that. But, like, in my original walk, it was one of those things that religion was religion, and it was never preached as, like, a relationship. You just went to church because that's what God wanted you to do, and then you just behave, because if you don't, but also with Catholicism, Dad also never told me that I was going to hell, because if you're baptized, he would tell me that you just spend longer in purgatory. So what you're doing is you're trying to cut out of your sins, because you're going to have to go to, like, jail before heaven, where they burn off all of those sins you did, and then you go to heaven, which is only really talked about in Maccabees, I think. And it might be in another one of the Apocrypha. But, like, this whole idea of purgatory is not anywhere in any of the non-Apocrypha stuff. But, like, that's one of the things. But and that's why even the Pope, like, the Pope said a while ago, I remember one of the statements was that, like, basically Christians are still murderers and all that, because, like, in the church, once you've been baptized, you're good. You've been sealed away. So it's like, it's just the act for the Catholic Church, or at least that's my interpretation. If you're Catholic and you have a different, that's just not what they taught me. It was religion. And so, of course, what happens when you're given religion, I didn't really do much with it. It was concepts outside, stuff I didn't know, I just added. It's funny, but like some of the stuff that I've now heard about, and like stuff I've looked into of like the Mormon Church and like how they believe. Well, they don't tell you right out, but like the overarching is like one day we're being raised, but then one day we're gonna grow up and put our big like God, like big boy pants on, and we could make our own universes. And like I actually had those thoughts myself, where I like if you don't know anything, you're just theorizing. You're like, yeah, God's probably like one day we'll just do something. So like what else are we gonna do? Like
everybody gets a universe.
Yeah, I'll probably if God is my father and I'm a child, I got to grow up at some point, which means I would have my own stuff then. So, and like I said, that's the whole point, is if you don't know and you don't look, because just a minute, I don't think I'm anything special. I bet you there are so many people that have similar thoughts to that, because if you only know what other people tell you, you just make up stuff. Not necessarily intentionally, but like we are human beings that have creative minds.
We have
if you don't know, but you're watching Marvel movies, you're watching Lord of the Rings, you watch all these things, you just kind of make this like stew of this is what I think God is. Or you just go, I don't think God is, it's too vast. There might be like a force maybe, or there's something, I'm not going to say, but like man might not ever figure it out. So like that's where...
How cool would it be though, like when Jesus returns, to like just have the Star Wars theme song in the background?
I think it's going to be not Hollywood, but I think it will be very monumental when God comes back.
It will be.
Blazing out of the sky with either a sash or a tattoo on his thigh that calls him the King of Kings. Yeah, that loosely, we won't know till it happens.
On his Santa sleigh.
Mm-hmm. So, needless to say, my testimony is I came from a very place where I just didn't have a lot of positive enforcement. It was, you can pick religion, and I think that's the whole thing. I was given too much reign of like religion. Like we're not going to force you to be religious. If you don't want to go to church, that's fine. But like you should, because God's real. But like it was always just kind of, and like even to this day, in my testimony, I love my father to death, and I think he's saved. Sometimes he does and says stuff though that confuses me, that I just don't understand. Like, but like again, I think he still has like the Catholicism religion, so I just don't know if he just really puts himself in a relationship status with God. But like he'll make statements that just amazes me. Like for a part of his life, he was like, Leviticus law matters. So I can't eat shrimp, I can't eat pork, because I want to get to heaven. And so I have to make sure, like, you guys can choose not to do it, but if the Bible said in the Old Testament you couldn't do these things, and that clearly means you shouldn't be able to do it now, and I don't want to miss out, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm doing that extra. But then he'll also say statements like, it'd be better if we were in a totalitarian system and we just shot people to get them to stay in line, and like, he's told me before, like, he'd be okay if, like, somebody got assassinated, and, like, maybe they should be assassinated. And, like, there's just, and I'm taking this lot, like, these are very separate, but, like, he'll just, and, like, there was one time he had this relationship with a lady who was not in his family, but in his family. She was Jewish, hardcore Jewish, didn't believe in Jesus in the sense that we believe in Jesus, like, he was so, like, talking about, like, he hopes he sees her one day, and, like, and stuff like, and I'm like, but if she doesn't believe in Jesus, I don't think she's going to be in heaven. Now, not as, like this is, I'm not trying to, like, I'm not the one that's going to deny her, but, like, I know the Bible says you have to have, like, if you are a Jew, but you don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, like, you're not getting in, and not because you didn't follow the Bible to an extent, but because the whole reason we're going is because we don't deserve it. Jesus died for us. And like I told him, like, have you ever felt like you should maybe talk to her about it? You love this lady so much. He's like, no, I don't talk about that with her. And like I said, I'm not here to, like, I just feel like I've always, like, from my family, or at least the people I look up to, they're conflicting things. So I had to find my own faith on my own because I didn't get that kind of spiritual guidance from my mom and dad.
Yeah.
In the sense, like they were like, oh yeah, Jesus is good. You should, yeah, Jesus is great. But like, there's no motivation for them to like, oh, well, we need you to and like, even like my mom won't pick up a Bible to read it. Like she doesn't understand, like she loved Joe Osteen until he got found out about the money laundering and all that. But she had his book and everything. I didn't like Joe Osteen before that came out, but it's just like it's like the hope Christianity. And like, so like, with that said, all I can say is my biggest reveal, because I'm still talking way too long, my biggest reveal is when I was about 14, 15 is when it really kind of hit me. My sister, no, I guess I was 12 or 13. Yeah, because at 15 I was already down here. So it was about 12 or 13. My sister got into the Left Behind series, and she got me to read those.
I've read those. They're very interesting.
And give or take what you want to take from there. There's a lot of conflicting stuff or not conflicting. That is such a can of worms of like
yeah, it is.
Of what they talked about. So I don't need to get into that right now, but I'm just saying that those did really help share me this idea of understanding a little bit more about God. And I ended up getting those books as a reward from my sister every time I did something for her, because we kind of had this like relationship where my youngest older sister Jen, she really did kind of bond with me, and she would basically boss me around and make me do anything and everything for her. But she rewarded me she was so nice to me in the sense like she literally, I was her little gopher boy. Anything, like I couldn't tell, like you can't tell mom on me because she was sneaking, smoking, even though mom knew. And like it was just like this little nice little bond we had where she finally figured out my brother's annoying. If I just put him to work and promise him rewards, he'll actually not annoy me as much. So it kind of really worked out. So like one of the rewards is she would get me the Left Behind books for the kids. So I read those a lot. And that's where I think I had my original first kind of, and I don't think I was saved, but I definitely think that's where I was starting to get the understanding, at least my heart kind of was like I knew I was not in the right place, especially because one of my big things to share is just my whole life I've just struggled with the lustful thoughts, and and it was something that I carried into my relationships, and if it wasn't for me having that relationship when I finally understood God and I submitted to Him to an extent that I knew I needed to change how I felt about this nastiness about me, because I always was struggling in relationships where it either when I got what I wanted, it still didn't make me happy, and when I was in the relationship, it was always I always felt one-sided, even though I don't think I was, because looking back, I don't really think I loved these people. I said I did, and I always would then throw it back of well, the only reason it didn't work is you didn't love me enough. But yet, when you look at what you were doing, was I really, I wasn't loving them. I said it, but in my actions didn't prove that I loved them. And I always fell back on to just these deplorable acts of just and that was the whole thing. I got to a point of depression.
It's a downward spiral.
Into where I wanted somebody so bad, and I just felt so alone internally. I just felt like I was never going to have anyone, and that I really had this like need. I wanted somebody to love me, and but like I also didn't want to really have a relationship with someone. I just wanted to have a physical relation with. It's like I just kind of wanted a hooker, but at the same time I wanted real love, and I would treat them horrible, the girlfriends and women that I would get in my life. But then at the same time, when they were gone, even though they were gone, now I still wanted someone. And like I didn't understand.
Just constantly trying to fill the void.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, you can't like, this like ideal of like just when you're like at the water cooler with the guys or when it's like, well, looking doesn't hurt. It does though. Mm-hmm. Because if you're looking at other people and you're fantasizing, then you're going to take that back with your relationship, because then you're not like, all you're caring about is the next thing. Like, you're not happy with what you got. So if you're only looking at something else, like at what point then are you just like looking at disgust at what you have? Because then you're like, well, I could get something better. And then again, you don't realize, like, the more you really think about it, and was my big thing, is like, just because somebody doesn't have respect for themselves doesn't mean you should view them less as a person. And one of the biggest things is like men or women, if you're wanting to send and you're wanting like this pornography and all that, like, yeah, you can say they're asking for it, they want to share all of this, but like it is so detrimental that and I can tell you right now, these people that are doing OnlyFans and like pornography sites, yep, like they're not going to have nothing. Like just think about that, and that was something you don't really think of. Like, you show your face and all that. Like, if these people have families, your family members, other people can see. Like, it's all like that's like, just because you don't have respect for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you yourself, like, looking at that, you think, oh, like, yeah, I like that, because it's something that you're like, oh, I need to feed off of. But yet at the same time, you're just showing everyone you look at like that, like, because like really, the stuff, the thing about it is it's so shameful, because like you can be alone and you can think all this stuff, but you really, like, you know what I mean? It's so deplorable. So that was one of my biggest things. And I really think for the longest time after I understood who God was, God knew he needed to get me to get rid of that in my life, and I wouldn't. And so my walk with God was, for a lot of my teenage years to my early 20s to my late 20s, was really just, God kept telling me, are you going to knock this out? And I was like, eventually, but not today. And so, or I would be good for like a couple weeks or a couple days, and then I'm back to it again.
Yeah.
And then of course and it would be like, I'd have this like walk, and then I'd be like, yeah. And that was one of my biggest problems, was just trying to work on that. I would say that it's something it's like a cigarette, but even worse. I'll still get random thoughts. I still get impulses. But I'm going to tell you, when I did finally stop running from God, when I finally was like, I got to stop doing this, it was then that I found a relationship with somebody who then I was able to marry, and that I'm with now. Now, I'm not saying that I couldn't have done that and still been in those same ruts. But what I'm saying is, I really think, to me, that God waited to bring me my wife and my relationship until I had kind of started, like, I had to submit to that. Because there's things, you can fail occasionally, but there are always things, and like I said, I think that was my biggest one for mine, is the lust. Now, I don't think, there's more, But I would definitely say that was one of the things that stopped me from following God a lot, because I didn't want to give it up.
Yep.
And so
I'm right there with you, brother.
I didn't want to give it up, and it cost me time that I think I could have been maybe at a different point in my life, doing more maybe. But I was too worried, and like I said, I apologize to all the women I was with before. I hope they have actually been able to relook at their life, have a relationship with God, and find something more, because we ended up just wasting a lot of our times, and it was for nothing.
At least I got children out of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel you, man. I don't know about you, but like when dealing with that kind of stuff, like rejection played a big role in my life. Like my dad was like really hard on me when I was a kid. Like always expected perfection. So like I went out seeking these physical relationships with people that weren't healthy, but I think I did it most of the time out of spite, because like I was just tired of like living under this realm of I have to be perfect all the time. I need someone who likes me for me. Like I wanted to be loved, I wanted to be accepted, and that like opened this door into like me wanting to just have intimate relations with women all the time, and like the void was never filled, and like I don't struggle with it as much now, but like just the whole rejection aspect, of like the fear of rejection kind of thing, on top of like crippling anxiety and depression, like it just really threw me overboard for a while. So I don't know if it was kind of like the same deal for you, like.
Well, see, and that's what happened. Every time I would have failed relationships, I would end up having to. I would just be completely like I was getting panic attacks.
Yep.
I was having bouts of rage. At one point in one of my failed relationships, I just remember I had always talked about how I thought it was like like I didn't understand like how like people get into these fights and like they put holes in the walls and all that. But like I literally like I got to a point at one point where like after I'd had a real bad breakup, like I remember kicking almost a hole in the wall. I punched the wall. I was just so mad.
Put your smiley face on it afterwards.
No, I just fixed it. I just left it until my mom had one day. She'd seen it because I lived in a house across from them, in my grandparents' house, and she's like, "Why is your wall like this?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I'll have to fix it." Yeah. But and I think that's another reason is like.
I think more people than we probably expect deal with that too, like coming from a place of being rejected your whole life and seeking like intimate validation from other people. I think we all kind of experience that to an extent, It's kind of a deep rabbit hole, but
yeah, it didn't help as I would say unlike Marty thinks, I was never molested in the sense that that I think she thinks, but like I had so many females in my life that I really kind of have maybe more of a feminine aspect to my personality than I should. But as a boy who was literally had 3 older sisters and a mom, also my sister forced me to record all of her shows without commercials, so I was watching Dawson's Creek, Felicity. I had it kind of stacked against me, so sometimes I felt like I didn't think, like everybody always thought I was gay, and so like I thought sometimes that like my like I always felt like I was going to always be rejected. So like I would then just, well, this is the best I can get. So then I would go to my pornography and that, but then like that's unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And so then I would look for, like, I want to find a girl. So then when I finally got relationships, and like you get these weird, like pornography isn't a real relationship. So like you're trying to like just it just doesn't work. And so
Your mind tricks you.
but you know, with that, I would say on top of that, with the problem, because I think that was the other issue I had in my testimony was I started to become an atheist in the fact that one of the big things is I didn't understand a lot of things, and when I would talk to people, I realized there was so many different people that had different views. There were so many other different religions in the sense of like denominations, and then there's not only just denominations but other stuff. And then I came to the same conclusion that all the atheists always try to throw up, and I did the same thing. What makes the Bible, what makes your God the correct God when there is all these other gods?
Yeah.
How is X right here but all of the other ones are not? What's the difference? And so these caused me to have questions that I couldn't answer. And so on top of me also having the shame of what I was doing and everything else, I just kind of was like, I got into this point where and I also was mad at God, because I thought if God, because I almost, there was times I thought God would be like a genie, like, all right, God, if you want me to really believe, you want me to do this stuff, then I want a girlfriend, or I want this to happen.
Yeah.
And if you don't make that happen, then you're probably not real. Like, that ain't how God works. When I had those conversations where like, and it wasn't until, I got to a point, and I really think it was because, like I said, I think God is like this, the Triforce. You got what your mind knows, and then what you're convicted by the Holy Spirit, and then you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And I think I had too much information, that I had those seeds growing, but I didn't have good soil. So I think I had thorns, I had hard, I had rock, I had everything but the good soil. But I think God was so merciful. He just kept throwing more seed. He kept sending more people, and they just kept throwing seed. And I think what eventually happened is I really got to the point where I'm like, okay, what does the Bible say? And like, maybe I was in a better place than some atheists, because I had a little bit more. Maybe there was more good soil through the years than than other atheists could be. Because some atheists, they can listen to all of this advice and they still come up with the same conclusion with it. It's all a joke. It's stupid. But like, once I started asking questions, and you have that, just, I want to know, what does the Bible say? It's amazing how God opened the door. Stuff like what I know just amazes me today compared to what I was originally. And I'm not saying I know anything special, but I'm just saying, I really believe you don't have to have great intelligence. If you just have a heart for God and you want to ask, or even not a heart for God, test God in the sense, like, if there is anything of doubt, not against God, but a doubt against your unbelief, God will find a way. He's not going to force you believe, but God wants you, that slow little seed of hey, you might not want anything to do with me today, but every day is a little step closer to me, ultimately. And I would have to say that's kind of where I was at. I think when I was 12, I had an opportunity with God, and I wasn't ready yet. I didn't understand enough. When I was around 15, 14, there was a little bit more. I was reading all my Left Behind books. It was there, but it wasn't there. Then I got into my late teens, early 20s, and that's when depression really set in. And I think it finally, I had to go to a counselor because I was thinking about blowing my brains out. And I think it was shortly after that I did make my choice. I chose to believe God. Not because I had to choose God, but because I had to actually really look, I needed something. And when I found God, I was just like, oh, well, let's see. If I can maybe get some answers, we'll see what it is. What do I got to lose? And then when you look into it, you go, it's not even false hope. It is real hope. They're the best hope of any hope that you can have, that you can find. And it gave me a perspective that, I can't say I've been doing a great service for God, but I have never taken my eyes off of God. I've been walking willy-nilly along the trail. I would definitely say there's been good parts where I've been doing good for God, and there's parts that I haven't been doing good for God. But He's got me now in the sense that while I may not be an ideal Christian, I'm not going to be the best of the best, I'll tell you that, but I do have my eyes on Him now, and I don't ever want to to let go of that, because I don't want to leave that love. I see the promise of God. And
I think once you've experienced that too, like, experience the real God of the universe, like, when you try to go to other things, it's almost like He won't let you. Like, no matter what you do,
And I think that is true. I think if you really are saved, if you really are, you've already trusted God, and it's past that point of, because God He ain't never going to force you, but if you've truly given Him and said, God, and you meant it, I don't ever want to let go of you. Hold on to me. I do believe in that sense. You can only drift so far away before, because God now lives within us. So at some point, He's going to kick you and go, hey, you're mine now. And I'm not forcing you in a sense more than you're human, because we're human. We're always going to kind of need we need a shepherd, because we're the sheep that needs to be pulled back. But I really think once you've given your life to God, and it's true, you really meant it, I do think that nothing's going to separate you from it. I don't believe you lose salvation. I can believe you can think you're saved, but you still haven't really made that commitment. And I think these are the examples. Almost anybody who gives me these examples of, well, what if you did this and this and this and then you did this? I'd be like, well, I don't think you might have probably been saved then. I think you said you were a Christian, but just saying it don't mean nothing. And I think you lied to yourself. And that's the whole thing, is, are we being true? And that's going back to last week again, and I think these are good words to know. If you really love God, what are you doing about it? Because it's not just what God can do for you, it's what are you also doing for God. Because you don't want it to be like that. If you got a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it's not just about what you're doing for them. And you don't want it to just be about what they're doing for you. God wants, and isn't that so beautiful that God doesn't need us. He's like, I already did it all for you. But that isn't love. If after I tell you, because I almost think of it like we go out to lunch, and we go out and it's your turn to pay, and you have no money, and it's like, it's okay, I got it. But this is probably a horrible example, but like, Jesus isn't paying with money. He paid with the punishment. So that means for every extra thing you put on your plate, Jesus has to get another lashing. He has to be kicked an extra time. And I don't think this is a great analogy. What I'm saying is if you really love that person, if you know you can't help putting sin on them, that's one thing. But then saying, oh, well, if you're going to pay it all, hey, waiter, bring me everything you got. Like, that's not love then. You're now manipulating that person. You're like, what are you? I want a sugar daddy then. Jesus doesn't want to be our sugar daddy. He wants a relationship with us. He wants us to also show, because that is so, think about that. We have no reason, because really there is no 100% proof that God is real. So every time we do something and atheists are like, you're an idiot, really think about that. That is a show that we get to show God how much we love Him. Because we have no concrete proof. We can say what we feel, we can say what we've witnessed, but without that concrete proof that God is real, when we're doing it, this is an act of love, because we're trusting that His promise His word he left us is not fake. It's not BS. It is real. And isn't that such a great gift we can give back, because he's already promised us way more than I know I deserve.
I like that. I like that analogy too. It's very.
I don't know if it's great.
It's very on the whim, but it kind of it makes sense a little bit.
I hear a lot of an analogy that I hear is like speeding tickets. You get a speeding ticket and you go to a court, and the judge is like, "Well, I got to fine you because you've done something wrong." But then someone comes and pays off your fines for you, then you're free to go. And so the example with that is God's kind of like a judge. He's going to judge you and see all that you've done wrong. But Jesus has paid your fine, so he's going to let you walk free. But again, with like you said with the food thing, if you're going to keep doing you're like, well, if he's going to always pay for it, I'm just going to keep doing it and keep doing it. That's not at all a relationship with God and with Jesus.
It's one-sided.
Yeah, because at that point, it's very unfair. I think that's something that people don't understand for sure. Like when you're a Christian, if you're truly a Christian, you truly believe in God.
Well, that's something I didn't understand.
Yeah.
It's taken me a while just to figure that out.
But I think that definitely people don't 100% see that it is a relationship with God, and it is a relationship with Jesus. And that's what we got to try to work towards, is building that relationship, because it takes more than just saying I'm a Christian and actually doing the things that you need to do, like building a relationship with God, with Jesus, is what actually gets you into heaven, not just, being a good person. I think people don't see that. I've watched a lot of videos. There's one guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he does a lot of this, going in the streets and interviewing people, and he tells them about it. He's like, well, a lot of the people will ask, what do you think gets you into heaven? And they're like, well, just being a good person. He's like, well, there's way more to it than that. Just your good works is not going to get you to heaven. And the big thing, because we're all sinful, we are all sinners, and I really like the guy, what he says, God's a judge. That's the thing that he says, God's a judge. And I love that analogy. God is our judge. And when you go there to God, if you've never built a relationship with Jesus and with God, but you're like, well, hey, I may be a lying, lustful, blasphemous person, I may be one of these people, but guess what? I did good things for you. I did good things. I helped feed homeless people. And God's like, well, I don't know you. That's one of the passages in the Bible. I don't know the exact word-for-word verse, but God tells the person, or I think he was talking to a group of people, he tells them to turn away from him because he never knew them. And that's the whole thing. It's a relationship. And it's something to think about for sure. That's something I think about.
I think that also goes back to, like, having the outward appearance of being good,
Mm-hmm.
Like compared to having the actual relationship. Like, that's a lot of churches out there, man. Like,
there are a lot of churches that they try to make Christianity easy.
Like, the outside appearance looks great, but inwardly they are ravening wolves,
I think with different groups, different religious groups, they make Christianity their own way, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
It should all be only one way, and that's God's way.
Yeah.
But it is kind of going full circle. Before 2,000 years ago, you had where, before the church, they didn't really use that term, but you had the people of God, the Jews, and you had their elders of the church and of making sure that the temple and where everything was correct. You went there, they had all of everything done, but you had these holy men towards the end when Jesus finally came. The two groups of people, you had the Pharisees, and then there was another sect of elders, religious leaders called the Sadducees, and I think there was even a third one. I never remember. They were close to that name, but these were people that were supposed to be what we're seeing now. These are holy men. These are the elite that you should be following. What do they know? Because they're the ones that are in charge of everything. And
Yeah.
when Jesus came, he found out that they were all ravenous wolves. These were not men of God. They were using religion. They looked super good on the surface, but inside, they wasn't even following anything they were preaching. And when he got to the temple, he literally got so mad he knocked over everything and said, "You have made my father's house a den of thieves and vipers." Like it's a place of money changing. You're not doing anything for God in here except lining your pockets and patting each other on the back, saying, "Look how good we are." And I think that's the biggest thing is God has always told us to just be real. And just, we always need to be working to be the best version God wants. Or I should say, really, we should be trying to be looking like Jesus. And what did Jesus do? He followed God. He followed the laws of the Bible. He never got mad at people. And the times he got mad was because, why was he mad? Because other people who was in positions of religious or of spiritual positions of power, that's when Jesus was mad, because he's like, and I think we're supposed to, like, if your church, or if stuff isn't being, like, somebody's got to do something about it without it being like aggressive, but like, it's up to us to be his church. The church isn't the building, it's the people.
Yeah.
And so we all need to be making sure we're honing each other and we're all following Jesus, not each other, because we don't want to be going to a church, the building, of a group of people, and following our pastor or our leader if he isn't following Jesus.
Right.
Because it needs to be a step down.
I think that's a reoccurring problem that most churches deal with is, looking to the creation rather than the Creator. Listening to what men have to say rather than what God himself has to say. And we get all these tickly feelings in our ear. We surround ourselves with all these teachers, And what does God actually say, I mean, yeah, it's good to listen to other people. See what they have to say. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Listen more than you talk, Notice what's going on around you. But I think definitely, like, most churches that I've been to have that problem. They trust people so much that when there's a falling out, they turn away from God, And that's the opposite of how it should be.
Well, I think we're at a part where, and I think this is a real thing that everyone needs to understand, going to church is fine, but if you're not reading the Bible, searching the scriptures, you have no clue if I'm telling. How do you know what I'm telling you is right?
Yep,
and see, the early church, when this all was starting up, when the Apostle Paul was writing the letters to each of the early churches, that's literally what he was doing. He was saying, hey, we need to all it's up to us to keep this fire going. And he always said, don't just trust what I'm saying. Read the scriptures. What does it say? Because if I'm not giving you the book of Paul, if I'm not giving you the book of Will or the book of Levi, and I'm telling you something that I read, you should be able to go to what I'm reading and also have now there always is going to be baby Christians or that, but if you're just becoming a baby Christian and then you're never going further than that, you're doing not anyone but yourself a disservice, because you're now trusting men to tell you how you should feel, and you're going to get different perspectives very quickly.
And I think the Holy Spirit too plays a part in that, and leading you and guiding you in all truth. I mean, I take inspiration from a lot of different places. I listen to people. I listen to a bunch of songs. I read a lot of different books. But like in the end, like, I know what the Bible says. I can quote a lot of things from the Bible. I know what they mean. I know the spiritual aspects of things. You have to do your own work. You have to come to your own conclusions, work out your own salvation, And that's, I think, a lot of people don't dive deeper. They get to this, they have this surface level, and then there's nothing past that for them, And like, the things of God excite me. That's why I dive deeper into things. And like that's definitely a Holy Spirit thing with me. I'm glad to like go deeper into stuff. And like I just see like there's so many people out there who don't like want to go deeper with God. And that's like it's like there's meat in there, man. You just gotta get in there and get your teeth on it.
I've always felt like once if you can deaden your heart, you can make yourself where you don't want to do stuff.
You can get burned out for sure.
But there is so many things to learn. Like the Bible is so filled with so many important lessons for us, and like just like it's amazing. I continue to find more stuff every day.
Yeah.
Rereading stuff.
You can even come back to things and find a new perspective.
Just like today, like I don't know how many times I've like those just in church today, like the seventh the festival that the Jews do.
I thought that was awesome.
And I never actually, even though I had read the way he described it and rereading it, I never really put the two and two together of how those two sayings that Jesus quotes and says were directly related to that festival.
Mm-hmm.
And how he was really trying to give the Jewish people, look, you keep following the religion, but I'm telling you, look, it all points to me. I'm that living water. And then the next day, he goes, I am the light.
If you look at like the Jewish calendar compared to ours, it's crazy because all of our dates are essentially pagan compared to the Jewish calendar. Like all our holidays, they're pagan. Mm-hmm. And like the Jewish calendar really is the holy calendar. You know, and you look back over time, the Hebrew calendar, man, like. A lot of Christians don't realize that, like that was the first calendar, that God had ordained, and like it's followed through time, and like now China has their own calendar, we have our own calendar. Like if like you dive into that stuff, like it gets crazy, and that's the whole can of worms, to open up. And you can actually, like, if you like, do a lot of research on our holidays, like, look up, like, the origins of Christmas, like, where did that really come from? The origins of our New Year, where did that come from?
That'd be the not the original setup Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church that became what it is today.
It's interesting how
the popes to battle all of the pagan rituals. They just decided what better way than to just switch everything around to just all be on the same day. That's how we'll fix it. That way the pagans can come and worship at the same time we're worshiping, and then we can just convert them over because it's no change for them, because that's how you do it, right? You lower God's bar so that the other people
makes sense.
Clever, right? Yeah.
But yeah, just like to the extent like just on Christmas, like that's the winter solstice. That isn't when Jesus was born. It was never when Jesus was born.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't know when Jesus was born because if you actually read the Bible, there was a king trying to murder him. So why would he have shared his birthday?
If you look at people who study the stars, even the wise men, they all use the Hebrew calendar, and everything revolved around that calendar. Like everything. Like you can study the stars, you can map the stars based on the Hebrew calendar. I don't know if you've read the Mazzaroth. But the Mazzaroth, essentially, it's the gospel and the stars. You should look it up sometime. I'm not going to sit here and explain it all, but each star and each constellation references the church or Christ, and they're all named for a specific reason.
Okay. Please send me a link so I will not remember that name. Well, I guess I'll remember it. I guess I do have your.
You have them saying.
Like I got it. Yeah. You're on record, sir. I
have a couple links somewhere. I'll send you.
Yeah,
I've studied all that stuff before.
But And yeah, and it's just like some stuff like has been changed, and like if you don't understand, just like another thing, like things are just with time, like atheists make a big deal about your book has unicorns in it, right? It's like
The word unicorn didn't exist.
It did, but unicorn originally was a rhino.
Whatever it's called,
There's still in the 100 years ago in the last encyclopedia that's what the word was a rhino. And if you it's so amazing if you start to look when they mention a unicorn in the Bible and they talk about the horn and how the way it's supposed to be, there's two kingdoms that are supposed to shape it, literally a rhino horn of how it is. But yeah, we've just changed the word. And then Europeans, they didn't know what rhinos were. So when they fantasized a mammal that you could ride with a horn on its head, they just made it a horse with a horn on its head. And then it's just been kept that way.
The same with dragons. Dragons are just dinosaurs.
And it's just, and there's just so many things like as far as Christmas is a Christian holiday in the sense of why we do it, but the timing is on a time that is wrong, technically. Jesus was not born during that time of year. And like I said, one of the things that is really cool is the reason, like a lot of people, another atheists will say about like Jesus' childhood and that, but like, think about this. How many people do you think wanted to murder? Like, the devil has been doing, like...
He's good at what he does.
If, like, we're like, well, why don't we have any stories about Jesus as a child? Well, they probably, first off, Jesus was not allowed to have any authority. So as God, if you got to think about it, if God is perfect and this isn't I got you, Jesus as a child was not he didn't talk out, like, because he had to be respectable. He honored his father. He went to temple. He was just a little kid, and he had no right to do anything. It wasn't until he matched what was the perfect time of what an elder would be considered. That is when Jesus did his ministry, is when Jewish tradition is you are now old enough to be able, you're not a teenager speaking out. That's why we don't have teenage Jesus preaching the Bible, because that would have been disrespectful. He had to go when it was the right time, when he was able to be viewed as an elder and it matched in with all of God's other stuff. We don't have those because it's not because there's inconsistencies in the Bible. It's because there's no importantness. There's nothing important we need to know at those times. It doesn't give us any more insight if we knew what Jesus was like as a teenager. Mm-hmm. but they just want to know because it's like I gotcha.
Yeah.
Be like a prequel to the New Testament that's not the Old Testament.
It's that in between missing links. Jesus went to the temple.
I wonder if we'll get that information when we get to heaven. It'll be interesting to.
Sure,
well, he worked a lot. He was a stonemason, because it's translated kind of poorly. I think it says like like the New King James or the King James says he was a carpenter. The carpenter is probably translated incorrectly. He probably was a stonemason.
That would have been cool though to like have in the New Testament, like kind of seeing like his human elements like growing up, maybe. But nah, I mean it's.
But I'm going to be honest. He probably. I'm going to be honest. He probably stuck out like he probably wasn't a normal child.
Yeah.
You got to think he probably also didn't associate, because you got to think if he knew that, because think about that. This is God in the flesh, and God knew the perfect time of when to do it. He already knew ahead of time of this is when he's going to do it. God, even in the flesh, you're telling me that Jesus as a child, if he actually did anything active, it wouldn't have shown up and caused his ministry to start sooner. Like think about that. Like we always make these jokes about and this could be, again, a poor analogy, but like, if we went back in time and we were in time, but we had all of our knowledge now, the butterfly effect would be horrible, because how much could we accidentally mess up because of just what we know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, this is God knew how it needed to go down. It had to be when he started at 30, and he died at like 33. Because think about that. When God finally showed who he was, it only took 3 years for it to finally be completely. He got crucified, and the crap hit the fan. If he would have done this sooner, then it would have changed all of the timetables, because God couldn't have been a child running out there doing these miracles, and then it would have been not correct, because at that timing he would have not even been considered correctly in what God had already established of the culture for his people. So it's just
numbers.
Mm-hmm.
God is a mathematician, for sure. If you look at like just the stars, or the lining of the sun and the moon, or the eclipse that happened when Jesus died, like, it's all lined up somehow, always, you know.
It's all perfect.
And the number 33, the Freemasons use that number a lot. I find that interesting, you know.
all through the Bible. There's so many numbers that crop up as well.
12, 24.
But
It's amazing the deeper you get into it, you know, for sure.
But, you know, they even, was it, there was a couple scientists, they were atheist scientists, but they were talking about how, like, mathematics is itself a living language. And I'm like, you know, for all we know, maybe math is literally, like, what we see. Because, you know, God tells us that he's everywhere. So what if that's just a representation of God throughout our universe? Is that the reason math and mathematics exists and works is because we're in a universe with God, and because God is that alive language of himself. It's just another representation of himself you can't not see, because God is everywhere.
Yeah.
But other than that, do you have a testimony? Me and Shelby's talked a whole bunch.
Yes.
We've been waiting, saving the best for last.
The worst for last.
Best for last.
Yeah. So my testimony's a little different. As a kid, my parents weren't ever talking to me about anything like God or just anything in general like that. I actually have an aunt that talked to me when I was a young boy a little bit about God, but she was always really mean about it. So that kind of didn't help me growing up, because I always thought, well, religious people are mean. They're telling me I'm going to go to hell if I don't just turn over and believe in God. So, you know, as a young child, that was my look on it, was people that have, like, I thought people that believed in God were mean because they were always saying stuff. And I only had, like, the one aunt that would talk to me a little bit, but she was, like I said, always really mean about it. She was always really mean to me. And once I got to the age of like 10 or 11, in that area, that's when I had my first little glimpse, I guess, of God. I used to go to Wednesday church at New Salem when I was a little kid, and I did not go for God. I went because I wanted to play basketball and hang out with my friends, and so I didn't even care. But one day I was with one of my friends there, and actually it was Brett Jones. I know, Will, you know Brett Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He was asking all of us to come up to the altar if we wanted to accept Jesus into our life, and my friend that I had at the time, he jokingly went up there, and so I followed him just because he was doing it, you know. And then he left, and I was still there by myself, but I stayed instead of just running away from it. And Brett talked to me, and I didn't really think much of it, but later on that night, when I got home, I kind of had this, like, overwhelming sensation, because I was, the whole time after that, I was really just thinking about, like, what did I say, what's going to happen, and then I had this just overwhelming sensation of, like, maybe I did something right for once, like, maybe I actually have this thing. And so from there on, I started thinking about God. I never had anyone talking to me about God, but I was thinking about him all the time. So I never really believed or actually accepted Jesus into my heart. But also going from like the age 12, up until high school, there was a lot of things that happened. Like my cousin Jonathan passed away when I was 13. No, I was 12, about to turn 13. He passed away that summer, and being a little kid who didn't really know much about religion, I kind of was like, well, God can't be real because he's letting my cousin die, and I didn't understand that everything happens for a reason. So I was just like, this is dumb. God's dumb. He wouldn't just do this to our family for no reason. And I thought it was no reason. He should not have done this. We don't deserve this. So I kind of had that anger in my heart. And so going into 8th grade, I remember my friends and I started talking a lot more about like how we just did not believe in God. We were like, oh no, God's not real. There's no way. There's no proof. And even though I was saying that on the surface, I still had that thought of maybe God is real and I shouldn't say these things. So I was saying that to people just because, I feel like looking back on it now, it's because everyone else was saying it. So I was like, well, yeah, I'm with everyone else, I'm following the herd. I don't believe in God. But in my heart, I was like, maybe I do, or maybe I should. Maybe it's not right to just be like this to God. And, in my 8th grade year, I went through a relationship with this girl, and she was super just, like, it's bad to say, but at the age of 13, I was in a mentally abusive relationship with a girl. So that kind of also didn't help. So I was really, like, in that mindset of I don't even know if I can believe in God because he's not doing anything good for me. And so going on to high school, all through my high school years, I was always at this battle of, is God real or is he not real? So I was always thinking about, is he real, he's not real. And I had this one friend, you know him, it's Aaron Bailey. Mm-hmm. He was the only person in high school that would actually try to get me to believe in God. And so he was always talking to me about God, and it was hard for me then because Aaron did not really say it in the right way either, kind of going back to what my crazy aunt would say. She was kind of mean about it. He was kind of being like, well, if you don't believe in God, you're just going to go to hell. Like, he was kind of always like that about it. Mm-hmm. And so that was always another thing that I was like, well, it's hard to want to believe if you're just going to tell me I'm going to hell for no reason. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, mm-hmm. My brain didn't understand that these people wanted me to believe in God, but they were saying that since I am just not straight up giving my life over to God, I'm going to hell. And they never, again, like you said, there was never any, hey, there's a relationship. God promises you these things. God has all, there was never any good. It was always bad. It was always, you're going to go to hell if you don't accept him. Like, just the extreme bad. There was never any signs of, hey, there's a lot of good in God. And honestly, out of high school, I got married immediately. Very bad situation there. I had a kid.
But you notice, though, you said when you were there, though, it was Brett that had mm-hmm. talked to you.
Yeah.
Well, you went to him for your marriage, though. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I went. So I got my ex-wife pregnant in right before my senior year was over. I got her pregnant, so I left early in my senior year, and then we got married that summer. And Brett's who I went to about it, and Brett explained some things to me too. I think Brett was that early talk that I had. Like, he was always talking to me whenever I would talk to him, and yeah, out of high school, Brett actually would come over sometimes and talk to me about God, and he helped a lot. I think, I didn't understand the whole there's a relationship with God. I never understood that. I always thought, well, maybe it's just go to church or just read the Bible, like the things you need to do. There wasn't a, hey, there's a relationship, again. But Brett helped me have a better mindset of I want to believe in God. So after getting into that relationship I was in, that I got married, my brain, something clicked. I guess, again, I'm going to say it was most likely Brett talking to me. It helped a lot. So then I started wanting to believe in God. I wanted to, but not enough. There was never a, I need God. I want God in my life. Like comparing myself, that was 5 years ago. Comparing myself now, it's way different. I feel like I need God. I have to have God.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, well, I kind of want God, but I feel like there's too much I have to do to have God. And so, I went through this few year marriage. It wasn't an actual marriage. It was just, this bad relationship. There was never honestly a good just this relationship's healthy. It was always bad. And I mean that kind of relates to what a marriage is actually supposed to be about. It's a man, a woman, and God. There was none of that. It was just a man and a woman. I wouldn't even say man and a woman. It was a boy and a girl. So your kids. And
Playing house.
exactly. And that whole situation was bad. And almost towards the end of it, I met Will. And Will, I started talking to. You started talking to me. You said something about how you believe in God, and then I would ask you questions, and that helped me a lot too. And there was always the question of how can I believe in Him? I never accepted Him. I thought there was so much I had to do, and honestly, the moment I accepted God was when I was at my lowest. So me and my ex-wife, she had left me, and I couldn't see my kids, so I was very lonely. I lived in a house by myself for almost 3 months, and within those 3 months, I was very depressed. Like I said, I couldn't see my child. She was just gone. My ex-wife had done a bunch of really bad things that I found out after she left, and it put me in a bad spot in my head. And I remember the exact moment that I actually accepted God. So when she left, I went, I was talking to Will and Morgan. That's Will's wife. Will told me I should just turn to God. And I was thinking about it a lot. And I told myself, it's the right thing to do. And so I was actually calling churches around, just trying to get someone to talk to me and pray with me. And the one church, it's the one in Marble Hill by Co-op. I pulled it up because I couldn't think of the name. It's Creekside Faith Fellowship. The pastor there is Tim Zitch. I don't know if you know him. You'd probably recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
But I called there, and he told me that they usually don't just have people come in. But he told me since I wanted to, he let me. So I came in there. It was like a Saturday morning or a Wednesday morning. It was like really weird time to be in church. But me and him, he took me in there, and we sat in the church room, in the church hall, and we were talking. And he was telling me about God's promise. And I remember I looked at this man, never met this man in my life, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And, hearing him pray over me, that's what really, just thinking about it's making me want to cry. It was weird to be in a situation where this man, all he's doing is praying for me, and I was overwhelmed, and I truly believed that God was the one, touching my heart, and it overwhelms me when I think about it. But from that moment on, I found that when I was lonely, all I had to do was talk to God, and that's what really made me believe that God's there. So I struggle still, fully having that relationship, because I feel like I struggle a lot, and it's hard, especially with being angry. Like I feel hatred towards people, and that's my big thing. And I shouldn't say hatred. I don't feel hatred towards anyone, but
Frustration.
It's especially towards like my ex-wife. I had to do what God wanted, which is forgive her, even though she did a lot of things that, obviously I'm a human. I found that the things she did was unforgivable, but I had to really, in my heart, to fully, with all the praying I was doing with God, because I remember any time I was depressed or just super lonely and upset, I would pray. And that's what I did. I'd start praying and praying and praying. There was a day where I prayed probably 6 or 7 times. And every single time I was just asking God to relieve my frustrations and my sadness, and that's what helped me find that, let me see how I'm wording this. That's what helped me realize that God is real. So that's why I started truly believing in God, is because the only time that I would feel happy was when I would pray. And so that really helped me learn that I need to not be hateful towards people. And relating to my relationship that I had that was really bad, I had to find in my heart that I had to forgive. So I've learned that when someone does something bad that I don't like, that it's easier to just forgive them than to be upset about it. And so God's really helped me with that, with learning to forgive, because I used to be a very hateful person. I mean, my cousin Kenny's here with us. He could testify on that. I was a very angry person growing up, and always really mean and hateful, and I would break stuff, and I was just an awful child. And again, like I said, looking back on myself in the past, it's like day and night. Yeah, I'm still angry about stuff more than I should be, but comparing myself, then it's night and day. It's crazy how much God has done for me. And
if it makes you feel any better, if I didn't have God, I'd probably be a murderer by now.
Yeah, I've been in a very, very rough spot with, the biggest thing for me was my child being taken from me. When that happened, all the fingers were pointed at me. My ex-wife went and got a restraining order on me, and she had dozens of people believing that I was this awfully abusive person.
Yeah, the accusations, man.
A lot. I mean, telling everyone all these crazy things, and the big thing was taking my child from me and telling everyone that I didn't want my child. That was the biggest thing that made me have this hate towards her. And that put me at a very low spot. I mean, being in that situation where I can't see my kid, I have no idea what's going on with my kid, and I was at a very low point, and like I said, I had to pray and pray and pray and pray, and that's really what the devil did. Was he'd hold my daughter over my head, essentially.
Yep.
And that's one of the biggest things. Another thing is being lustful, like both of you have said. I mean, Will knows. I went and I did the wrong thing. I told Will I accepted God. I went to him and I was like, hey, I'm going to believe, I'm going to turn my heart to God. And then what did I do? I let the devil control me. The devil, he's like, hey, you want to be lustful. And so what do? I run and I go sleep with 2 random girls, no idea who they are. And I use them like they're just sacks of meat. And I regret that. That's another thing. And I'm sorry. I moved jobs, and I had this guy that I talked to a lot there that was basically like the little devil on my shoulder, telling me, hey, you should just go do it. Go sleep with these women. Doesn't matter what they do. And then I had Will on the other shoulder. He's like, hey, don't do that. They're people. And I think what I realized is I didn't want to lose my friends. Sorry. I realized that being lustful is way worse than I thought it was, because I was hurting my friends more than I thought. Like, I felt like I was going to lose Will. That's why I hold you on a high pedestal, because you helped me a lot. I almost turned to a really bad person. I remember sitting there one day, and I was just about to go do it again. I was talking to a different person, a different girl, and I was about to go try to sleep with her, and I thought about how I was looking at these people I look up to, and they were almost ashamed of me, I felt like, and I didn't want that. So I think God put certain people in my life for a reason. I owe so much of my life to Him. So I'm very I'm very thankful for what I have and what we're doing here. Just getting to talk to you guys about God, it helps. And, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
All good, man. I love it. It's real, dude. It's real. I like it.
And it means a lot to me. Look, as someone who struggled, look, you have your, at that time, I may have had more life experience, but you had a child, you were in a situation that I wasn't even in. And when I looked at, who I know I am as a person, I've never looked down on you, but I was always I always felt, and I think God sent me to you, because I think God knows how horrible a person I am and what lust and all that has done. So every time I would see stuff happening, I was never judging you, but I was just, I think I was always just, and I was that voice that God was telling me, you need to tell Levi, this isn't acceptable. It's up to you to make the choice, but if I wasn't sent, you wouldn't have had that other person on your shoulder, and you would be in a different place than you are now.
That would be much worse.
So,
I think I always felt like when people have discussed like my problems, like personally with lust, most of the time when my parents talked to me about it, or I had a pastor talk to me about it, I felt condemned. More so than the idea that God had better for me. No one ever told me that. I had to figure that out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had that voice of compassion in my life telling me that you don't have to do this. There's better. It's not because I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
That
was the big thing for me whenever I was, like I said, my ex-wife left me and she had told all these people all these bad things about me. So I felt like everything that was happening to me was my fault, and that, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. That's how I felt. Everything was against me, and I had these few people again, Will and Tim Zich. I owe a lot to him too. Whenever I went and talked to him, he was also just a random person telling me he loves me and he doesn't care what I've done. And he had told me, I remember, I'm not going to say no word for word what he said, but when I had sat down with him and I was talking to him, he told me, if you did do these things that your wife said you did, he's like, well, God loves you. And I think that's probably what made me sit there and think, well, if I am truly an awful person and God loves me, then why would I not give my life to him? And that was the big thing, when you're feeling lonely and depressed and you feel like there's no one to turn to, God's always there. And
I think that's the only time we can hear him, because when Jesus came, he said, I came here for the sick and those who needed a physician.
And the broken.
If you're not broken, then you got that pride. And, and that's what I said. I skated around God for years until I was so broken, thinking about ending my life. And now I have time for God. And yet God loves me so much that even now, if this was a real relationship and you would think, well, now you're going to pay attention to me, you would be like, I don't want nothing to do with you. You had your chance and you wasted it. But God's always like, look, I've been waiting. I'm still here.
Yeah,
I can still be a part of your life today.
I think that's an awesome point too. I think I'm always going to try to be sick so I can see Jesus more, just realizing you're constantly broken no matter what you do. That we're just rags, And once you grasp that, it's like you realize you need saved. And you just keep coming back,
The biggest reason why I always tell people the reason I love God is because he always loves me. And the reason I have accepted that Jesus died for us on the cross is because I know that Jesus did it because he wanted to do it. And it's insane, I've said the thing that I think some people have said that I've heard, just think about how crazy the amount of love God has for us. He sent His Son to die for us, and that's just insane. Once you actually understand that, when you look at it, it's like He loves us so much He sacrificed His Son for us. And that's crazy. And then whenever you look at Jesus' perspective,
God was dead. A part of Him was dead for 3 days from the punishment He had to wrought on Himself for all of our disobeyment, because it had to be, the payment had to be paid. And Jesus had to suffer in ways we'll never understand for each of us. But he went there, and He already knew who would ultimately go. So not the predestination, I don't believe in it for myself in the sense, but God knows everyone who is going to eventually. So when Jesus died, He didn't do it for everyone minus you.
Mm-hmm.
He died specific. He wouldn't have done that if it wasn't. My sins are on there just as much as it is yours. And He did it specifically because God was merciful. He did it to honor His Father, and He did it because He loves us so much that they wanted to show and share eternity with us. This life was going to be over one day, and we're going to be dead, but we're not going to be over. YOLO is not working for me.
Yeah, there is no YOLO.
You only die twice.
Yo.
I don't think that works.
Yold? No, Yolt.
But, that's the whole thing, once you're broken, you can choose to just have no hope and just be mad at everything. But if you're broken, I'm telling you, God will be there for you. And like I said, not happiness, but joy. God in my life, if I hadn't turned my life around, I don't know where I would be right now. I don't know. I'm not going to say, because I also feel like I was at the same time. So I would say I was semi-suicidal, but at the other time, or was I just bluffing myself? I know at the time, and because I'm going to be truthful, like I felt like I wanted to kill myself, but at the same time, I didn't get very far doing it, and then I got talked out of it. So, was I just so unhappy that I was just, was that my cry for wolf of I need something? Or if I wouldn't have done anything, would this have been more than that? Was suicide becoming such a bigger thing now? It's just, if there is no, and I think that's the whole thing. When you put yourself in a box where there is no hope, and you have nothing that looks like there's a promise for you, you're setting yourself up to where you have nothing out. Yep. And I'm telling you, and I think I don't know where I would be without God. Mm-hmm. And I can see why people get even further down in depression. Because if I didn't have my rock of Jesus, I wouldn't be at all, I think, in as good of a place. I don't know how my marriage would have been. I don't know if I would have even found Morgan. I have no clue where my life would be if I hadn't made that choice years ago.
Yeah.
Yep. My life's been a concussion after concussion. I've taken a lot of hits. And like being on that ground level, like half of it's my kids, my love for my kids. I live for them. As a full custody dad. Even doing it by myself. It's hard enough to do that. But to be under constant attack from your own depression, from your own suicidal thoughts, I wrestle, dude. I still wrestle even as a Christian, I'm not gonna lie, sit here and say that I don't, because it gets lonely,
I think that the Bible, I don't know exactly the verses, but it mentions how we, the closer we get to God, the more sin presents itself to us.
We see everything with a different
the more
scope.
I feel like there's more opportunity for sin, the closer we get to God, because the devil's trying his hardest to get us to turn away from him.
Yeah.
I think that's something that...
I think it's twofold. I think one, to an extent, I do think I think if you are not accepting God, and I think there's some wiggle room where I think you can see and people getting away with like murder, where like everything good happens for them, kind of. And I would say that if, as far as a Christian walk goes, if you're doing something right for God, you're going to have opposition in some way. Mm-hmm. Either the devil's going to try a new way to remind you about your old body and your old habits and try to kick you off your winning streak, because the more we align ourselves with God and we're on God's path, the more we're doing for God. Mm-hmm. There are forces at work that are working both ways. And if you believe in heaven, you believe in Jesus, you believe in hell, that there is thousands, millions, hundreds, we have no clue. The angels were never really numbered, but there is a whole working force of entities that do not work for my Lord and Savior. What are they doing? They're working overtime. They have just as much skin in the game because they don't like my Lord and Savior. They want to do everything they can to make sure that we miss out on it, because they know they're missing out on it. They already made their choice. So the best, and this is the whole thing, misery loves company. So really think about that. They know the devil, he can't beat God, but how I want to know, this is my chaos theory, does the devil really believe he's going to win in the end, or is he just so mad that does he lie to himself, or is he just convincing himself that he could maybe change God's plan? It really makes me wonder.
I've never really thought about
that. But the devil, he's got to be, if he does have a fraction of thought that one day he's going to fail, then all he's doing is, this is literally him doing the biggest tantrum he can, because he's like, well, if I'm not going, guess what? I'm going to steal this one from you. I'm going to steal this one from you. I'm going to take as many people as you, and I'm going to have you're going to have the smallest reward as possible, because I'm going to make it my purpose that you get no one, because I'm going to laugh every time you think you've worked on this person, and look, I got another one. He doesn't want nothing to do with you. She don't want nothing to do with you.
I definitely think that anytime there is, the opportunity to sin and it's taken, I think that, I'd say for myself, I don't fully fall for sin all the time, but there are times where I feel like I backpedal and I fall into that sin, and I definitely can feel the devil just like, almost like you said, laughing, and then I have God telling me it's okay, pick yourself back up, we can do this together. And it's a lot of that sense of regret. If you don't feel that sense of regret, then you are probably living too comfortably in your sin.
Yeah,
that's
that's
very good.
My big deal, like when I sin, or like I look at pornography or something when I shouldn't, like within the hour, man, I immediately feel like accused. I hear all these accusing voices in my head, That's a real thing. Mm-hmm. That is a real, like, spiritual battle that Christians fight, It's like, I know I'm not perfect, and I know Jesus has covered me in His grace, but that doesn't mean I don't still feel accused.
Yeah.
And that's not from God.
God,
Well, yeah, because if you have backpedaled and you've embraced this little part of sin, and it always, the devil works in twofold. So first, he's going to slowly try to whittle you down and be like, hey, especially if you're lonely, you're not
once.
Yeah. He's going to go the whole time. He's going to be on your side. He's going to be patting you. He's like, look, yeah, you're saved, right? You're saved. you could, if you look this one time,
Yeah.
then just don't look again, and then he'll get you all the way up to there, and then as soon as you've committed that sin, right afterwards, the devil's going to be like, hey, guess what? God's going to be mad at you now. You shouldn't have never done that. Look, because you did that, guess what? You've just lost a blessing. And he's now going to persecute you because now he won both ways until that cycle comes back again. And now he's going to be like, hey, just this once, right? That's just, well, hey, guess what? You're already in trouble. You already looked at these pornographies. You already did this yesterday or this morning. But,
It makes it harder, as a single dad with 2 kids in a modern world where women don't date for love. They date for money, or they date for what they can get out of you before they leave you, and it makes it hard to want to have an actual relationship with anyone, and then you're like trapped in this world. Like, I don't want to sin, but where's my relationship? Do I go out there and seek one right now? Do I get married to someone in a week, or do I keep looking at porn? Like, what do? I'm in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like a very like highly sexual person. I've always been that way. My dad was that way. And it's like, it's one of those things, man. It's like the devil gets you sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And each of us have our, some of us will have victories where others don't. All I can say is, like, for my own personal thing is the hating yourself, in the sense of hating that there's a part of your human nature that is that I'm over-sexualized, and trying to not feed into it. The best thing I can say for my own is your victory comes when you stop worrying about the act itself and then the fantasy around it. Because if you stop the fantasy, and then you don't have the urges are, it's like cigarettes. If you surround yourself around people who smoke and you fantasize about smoking, where you're like, you still have that ideal of like, oh, I remember when, like, I'd have a stressful day, and like right after that stress, like, I remember I could just sit here and light like one of my cigarettes, and like the world would melt away, and like, it's a fantasy. And like, if you do that too many times, then you're gonna be like, oh, I'm buying a pack of smokes, like, it's time. Yeah. So I think of it like, cigarettes.
I quit smoking for 2 years before I picked it back up again, and like, dude, I couldn't do it anymore. Like, those 2 years, I had the worst panic attacks I've ever had in my life, and like, I'm unwilling to take anxiety meds or anything. Like, it's like a real mental problem that I have, and like, it's wired into me, since I was young. Like, I've just been like really anxious. Like, my palms sweat even sitting here, like, talking to you guys. I'm just like, I wasn't raised around a lot of people. I was raised out in the middle of nowhere. I went to a private school. I was always like very secluded, like always very self-conscious, like always wondering like what people were thinking about me, and like some damage has been done to me over the years, and like, if it's not porn, it's like, I shouldn't look at porn, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. It's like, I have these vices, we all have them, and it's like, how do I get past it, like,
one step at a time. Telling yourself that you will be okay without it, because that's all I can tell you, as far as there isn't a cheat. It's a slow work. You have to just deny yourself, and that's real hard to do as a person, especially in like some of these like hardwired things where, like, you're telling, like, when you're like, I have to have it. And I think, to an extent, in human nature, yes, you might have to have it. But I think one step at a time, like with pornography and that, one of my original steps of getting rid of it was, and it's corny as all hell, but you need to have some kind of a reward system for yourself with like a track of like it's almost like AA, but instead of like for alcohol, for like your addiction, and you need to celebrate your things with God. You don't have to do it with other people, but like if you've made it if you're somebody who has to watch it every day or like occasionally, you need to start giving yourself like these battles, and you're going to have moments like it's a cigarette attack where you're going to have to, I need to look at pornography. Like it overwhelms you. And that's, I think if you want to do biblical, that's when you need to just, if you have the ability, separate yourself from everyone, give yourself a safe place, and pray to God, take this from me. Because if this is something that I can beat with your help, because I'm not going to beat it on my own. If I can't beat this on my own, then I'm stuck with this. But if this is something you want me to not do,
help me.
then and that's what you need to do, is pray about it and give yourself the time with God, and then give yourself like objectives of like, look, I made it, because these are things that I've had to do. Like, okay, I've made it this far, and like sometimes you're going to have a backpedal, but like there are victories along the way where you have these overwhelming urges. I have to do this. I'm going to do it. And if you can get yourself to not do it and you get past that, it's almost like that cigarette craving. Like then the next day you don't have it as bad. And then all of a sudden you could be 3 weeks down the road and it is overwhelming, and you want to like something happened, you want to look at something, or you want like in a way, and then you're put back into that choice. Sometimes you then fail. Sometimes you get you're on top, like I've been doing so good, and then you have a stop. So then you have to restart on your chart, and it's not about necessarily like how long. It's just because you got to think of it as this is like a gift to God. If this is something that you think you should be doing, like if you can make it a week when before all you were doing was every day looking at pornography, you've just given a blessing to God. Because again, God will forgive you for that. But are you trying to give him an offering of like, I denied myself? Because it's those little bitty moments.
I do try, for sure. I think it's mostly like when I'm stressed. Like,
oh yeah.
I'm just like, I need a break from all this freaking sadness and stress all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, And I don't have that outlet in my life. Like, I don't have a wife. So, like, everyone's got their, like, release, we're creatures of pleasure, and unfortunately for me, like...
You haven't met my wife.
But, like, it's a...
What's sex? I don't know what that is.
But it's like
become a monk.
A monk, yeah. I'm just gonna get it all cut off, man.
Well, the sad part is Jesus kind of did say that. He said, if your eye offends you, pluck it out.
I was actually going to say that's something to relate to real life situations. So, like, Jesus says, if you sin with your eye, pluck it out. Or if your left hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Well, relating that to a more realistic thing you could do, don't actually cut your hand off or cut your private area out. But for me, it's like... things that make me want to sin. If I see like let's say I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking through like Facebook shorts, and like this random one of this girl is wearing skimpy clothes. I think the best thing to do is, if you see that that's a problem, just don't be on your phone as much. Like it's hard. I'm addicted to my phone.
Leave a Bible verse below the picture.
Yeah, or just let's say, like I said with Facebook, if you're looking through like Facebook shorts, and then there's something that just it sets that, because for me, it's an addiction. I've had an addiction to pornography, and something could set that off really easily, and it's a very real addiction. Like someone who's addicted to drugs, it's very real. It feels real. The best thing to do is just stay off of whatever that is for a long time. Just get off of it. It's really hard to not be addicted to our phones. It's like the easiest thing to access everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I would say that I struggle with. I fight with those lustful thoughts a lot, and for me, I know you're in a different situation. You don't have a relationship partner. But for me, I think, well, if Marty knew these things that I think, how would it hurt her? It would hurt her. And then I relate that to God as well. Like, how would... God knows what we're feeling. does that hurt God? Does that make him want to turn away from us? And that's what I do, because I have this fear of God could turn away from me. And so if I do sin, I get this regret of, oh no, God might turn away from me. And so I get this huge, just overwhelming fear, and I let myself feel that, because I want to feel like God could turn away from me.
Right.
So then it helps me not sin as much. And that's the big thing. And, I found this because I saw this verse, I think it's the verse I mentioned earlier, where God told the people, I did not truly know you, so turn away from me. And so God has the capabilities of rejecting you. And that's terrifying to me. And so, again, I have two things I look at. I look at, well, how would it make my relationship partner feel? How would it make her feel if I did these certain things? And the other thing is, how would God feel? How does God feel? How does Jesus feel? And so that's what I kind of use as my way of like, don't do it. And I would say whenever I'm at that point of almost doing certain things, I have God in my head telling me, just don't do it, turn away. But then there's the devil who's like, hey, like Will said, it's okay. Just do it once. It's okay. Just do it again. You already did it yesterday. Do it again. And that's very real. It's hard to hear those voices. I feel like a lot of Christians don't realize that God's always telling you right from wrong.
Right.
God's always there. This is the wrong thing to do. Don't do it. And I think it's
a little voice.
Yeah,
it's a little voice when you're put in these situations of where, and it's not just with pornography. It's like when
any drug.
When even just being angry, like at people,
being mad at someone, or like for me, like there's been situations where somebody has come up and said like I had this this real thing that happened a while ago, but I was working, and out of nowhere, this older lady, she come up to me, and it was one of these just situations where she's just immediate. She's like, I need you to, hey, can you come outside and look at my car? I think it's, I let somebody borrow it, and they I think they messed up my brakes, and there might be something leaking under it. Can you go under there and like look at my car? And I remember thinking, I don't even know you, lady. And like I had this like little spiritual battle where I was just like, I just told them in the end, and it was their own thing. After it was over, I was just like, I don't know nothing about cars.
Yeah.
But then, the more I thought about it, and like the more that little voice told me, I'm like, I could have at least showed, like, what was it gonna hurt me? Like, just go out there, like this person, like literally.
Oh yeah.
They just wanted somebody to like maybe give them security. Like, is my car fine?
Yeah.
And it's just like stuff like that, like where you battle yourself.
You have an opportunity to help someone.
And that's really the whole thing. Like that little thing, I really could have done something for God without even knowing how to work on a car. Like all I needed to do, like this old lady, just wanted some. Like I'm just a slow, she probably viewed me like a kid, but she was like,
He probably knows something.
Like maybe he'll help me, and like she come to me looking for help.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I can't help you, lady.
So I actually have a situation similar. I had someone that I started my new route, with my job, and I had one of the people that I delivered to tell me I do a good job and stuff. And after I got in my van, I was like, why didn't I tell her it's because of God? Like I just said, oh, it's just like why wouldn't I? But then I thought about it, I'm like, why didn't I just say? Because I think in that situation it would have been a perfect opportunity to be like, hey, I owe the way I act to God. I only act this way because I'm trying to do right by Him. And I feel like in situations like that, like that's just another little thing. If someone says, hey, thank you, for doing this certain thing, if you help them, I think we should be like, hey, don't thank me, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm helping you because God wants me to help people. And that's what I'm trying to get myself to think in my head. If someone compliments me, to tell them, it's God. It's not me, it's God. That's the big thing.
But no, it's just, I really think there is spiritual, and that's the whole thing.
Continuous thing,
sure. and that's the whole thing. These situations happen all the time, and I think people really, we're living our life, and life is so fast paced now.
It is.
That you do have these moments that when you actually, and I don't know how it is for other people, but I can go, and after I have a whole day, if I really just sat down and thought about God and thought, what could I have done for God today?
There's a
I
million
can then
things.
immediately go, I could have done that better. I could have done that better.
Could have said this.
I could have done that.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't thinking about that all through the day, but man, if I actually stop and then at the end of the day, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I could have done a lot of things, but really I would have done nothing, but they would have been something. And I think getting what I need to do and what I'm always trying to go is instead of doing that at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you need to at some point follow that over to the next day. You know, not necessarily have to pray in the morning, but I'm just saying, like, are we even trying to listen to that little voice? Because if we have the Holy Spirit, He isn't going to yell all the time. He's just going to just whisper and go, what do you want to do? Are you going to do anything or not?
You can even make it a goal, like set aside an hour or two every weekend and go take $20 out of your pocket and go help feed people on the street, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've actually thought about that too. I thought, you know, it would be easy like every week because, you know, they always say the 10%. Well, what if you take your 10% every week and you just give it to people? You know, people
still
need help.
ministry.
Yeah, and
It's not about just giving it to
exactly what I
to
think.
the whatever building you're
It's
going
like,
to.
why don't you take that 10%? Because this is something I tell myself I should start doing. I should take 10% every week. I see these people like at Walmart. They're like, "Hey, you want to donate? Just give them $5. Give them $10." You know, every time I see that, and I think that, you know, that would be a way to also tell them, "Hey, like I just said, don't thank me, thank God." And that's a good way to tell people, you know, God's good and God's sending me to help you guys. It's not me doing it on my own. I'm not doing this because I want to do it. Because truthfully, I don't want to give my money to people, but I feel as if God's telling me I should do it.
I get you. Then I would say though, God also doesn't want a.
Well, I should rephrase that. So, I feel like
God says if you want to give, you should, but
Yeah.
you should never feel like you have to. So the 10% only give that if you want to.
I should rephrase how I say that.
If you're doing it with like reservations, then you're not doing it because then God didn't get the blessing. You gave the money. But if your heart wasn't in it, then it isn't a true.
I feel like
it's like an obligation. Like, oh, I have to. It's my turn to pay for the dinner.
My problem is that I have 2 kids to take care of on top of myself and paying all the bills. So half the time that I want to, I don't have the money there to do it. But I do it when I can. So it's probably not as much giving as other people do.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel half guilty about it, but I'm also in a weird situation. So, like, I give what I can, you know? And, like, I have to make sure that I can feed my kids, I can clothe myself, clothe my kids, take care of my stuff, you know, take care of all your stuff, you know, before you go out there and start giving more than you have, you know?
Well, I would definitely say if you're, you know...
If you're a family man, of course.
The Bible talks about...
As far as giving money, I would say... give what you can and give it willingly or don't give it at all. God doesn't want your money if you're already closed your heart and said, I need all of this for food, for all of this, and I need all of this, then don't even worry about it. But I would definitely say, and I challenge myself this, is if that's something that you constantly are like, I feel guilty, I'm not doing this, I feel guilty, I'm not doing something, then that means what can you give for God? If it's that's
more
money,
of a feeling. It's like the feeling like I
maybe you need to, you know, maybe like we need to do a podcast. Maybe we need to go out. If you can't give time, do you have an hour where you can go and do something that is?
Or you could even go pick up a homeless guy on the street and bring him home and let him have a shower or something. You know, even something like that. You know?
Yeah, you know, there's risks that come with that, and I would definitely say you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have to understand that if we're doing something like this, don't expect don't expect it to not maybe blow up in your face. You know, like the ideal, like because and that's the whole thing. You can't be mad at God or at the situation. You just know, you know, if this is a homeless person, why are they a homeless person? If you want to give them a sandwich, but then they spit on you, or you want to bring them and give them a shower, and then they like try to steal some of your stuff. look, sometimes even for when the devil gets a bad outcome to come, it's still it's the heart. You did do something for them. Now, how they respond, you do sometimes get a negative response, even when you're doing God's work. That doesn't mean you didn't make God proud, you didn't, that God didn't see that this is something you did for him, that this is out of love. But the world will be able and always trying to spoil those acts of love for God and then tell you you're a fool for doing some of them.
Yeah, don't do it again.
Which is why a lot of times I think we as Christians, and me especially, you just don't do anything because you just discourage yourself into doing nothing.
That's probably the devil's biggest tool is discouragement.
If I discourage you enough, you can just sit there and be very unproductive.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest. I think this was amazing. This was a great Bible study. Hopefully, this is more than a Bible study. This is a podcast.
Hopefully, this is a
Maybe
podcast.
It works. But
he's not doing that. He's flickering.
I don't know. It's your house.
It's because I said discouragement.
It's not my house.
But I think this was a good share. Thank both of you for your testimonies. I really appreciate yours, but Levi really got my heartstrings a lot more.
Yeah, his was the best one. I loved it.
Killing me.
I was not expecting.
Like I'm sitting over here, I'm like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
You won't up me, don't cry. No, I think that hopefully we can share this with people this time. If they really want to share it all over Facebook.
I'll get to work on this.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. Have we come up with a name for the podcast yet?
Yeah.
I still have no name.
The Naked Christian Podcast. That's what it was, right?
Should we be naked?
Wait,
You guys aren't naked?
no.
So you look at me and Shelby are naked. Josh shows up naked.
Christian Podcast. Not all the way naked, right? Just
no. If naked's in the name, we have to be naked.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, it's a little cold down here, so don't be judgmental.
Yeah, I still got Bible spuds, so but I am not. I am open to a good name.
I like my idea. I think it'd be fun. We all use
the Four Horsemen.
No, like
the Four Llamas.
The Four Llamas.
Like
the apocalypse.
Like the fool, the wise, the drunk. That'll be Josh.
I think I'm all of those. What was it?
All of those are you. The fool, the wise, the drunk.
Yeah, that's me.
The brave?
No. Like that can be one of you.
The scared? That'd be Josh.
Yeah, Josh is the scared.
Josh should be the fragile.
I mean, I would say I do a lot of nothing, but I don't know if I would necessarily. Yeah, I'm the lazy. I don't think of myself as the scared though. That's not one of my terms.
Yeah, I'm not scared either.
But yeah, all the others would be me.
The only thing I'm scared of is God turning away from me.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not scared. It's just the pain that gets me sometimes.
I'm
scared of losing in Yu-Gi-Oh.
See, I don't.
Right.
I mean, there's always like a stray thought of, am I being real to myself? But at the same time, I don't really hold on to those. I never want to get too comfortable in my faith saying my faith and be like, oh yeah, me and God are good. We're good.
No, don't.
I don't believe that you should do that, but I don't think I really doubt anymore my salvation. I am firmly rooted. Anytime I get a stray thought, I just go, yeah, good luck. Nice try, devil.
Our entire salvation is based on the grace of Christ. You know, we're all hopelessly untrue.
Yeah, I am a hypocrite in so many things. The only thing that I always tell myself is I don't want to be, like, hypocrisy happens, but not a hypocrite. Because hypocrisy is that I'm trying to follow Jesus, which means I'm trying to be perfect like Jesus was, knowing I'm never going to be anything like Jesus.
I think true hypocrisy is saying that you're perfect all the time. It's kind of like a...
Or maybe I'm saying it backwards then. I'm a hypocrite, but I don't believe in hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So whichever way is the correct...
I
Because
can't remember where it's at in the Bible, but there was a man who said, "Lord, forgive them, for they never sin, but I have kept all your commandments."
yes.
I can't remember where that was at.
It's in Matthew, I do believe. But it might also be in Mark.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
I do know.
It's a very good example of...
And he told him to sell everything.
Yeah.
He said, all right,
Sell
sell every possession right now and follow me. And he said the man walked away sad. And that's the last we heard of him.
He's been sad till this day.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at, but
He was so righteous until they told him to give it all up. And then he's like, oh.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Even my Big Mac?
Even that.
He's like, even my $1 million?
All right. I'm going to close this real quick in a prayer. Because we did that last time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I want to follow in your good tradition. So before I go any further, do we have any prayers, requests, or anything?
Yeah, pray for... just pray for my oldest right now. He's just going through a lot. He's kind of at that age where he's just like experiencing a lot of different emotions, and it's hard for me to understand how to be a mother to him and also a father.
Yeah.
So it's just very
It's hard to fill both those roles.
and I can't, and it's hard on me. I can't be there for him in a way that a mother is, and so just kind of like pray that God would help me with that.
His name's Edwin.
Yes.
Not Blake. Edwin Blake. I mean, God will know.
God
He'll
knows.
be like his
He
name
understands
is
the
Blake.
joke.
I can only be so soft as a man.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where it's hard to be comforting as a man.
Yes.
I run into that myself.
So yeah, all I can say is then you pray for, if not his mother, that maybe you can get a woman in your life that not only can bring you that other half, but then not necessarily just trying to be a mother, but can be something that he can look towards,
Look up to.
that you don't have to be that other half
Yeah,
that he's missing.
That would be great.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
she can help you with your walk with Christ
Alrighty.
too.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, pray for that. Also, my youngest just had his G-tube port put in. He had surgery on that a couple days ago.
Okay.
So pray that he doesn't get an infection or anything.
No, yeah.
Because we don't want any more hospital visits. And hopefully that's the last of using a feeding tube through the nose.
Okay.
Um,
And what's his name?
his name is Theodore.
Theodore. Okay. Nice. All right. Dear Heavenly Lord, we just want to end our podcast in this Bible study, Lord, and we want to do it, and specifically we want to lift up your name, Lord, because us coming together and us doing this is only wonderful if it is to not do anything but to magnify your name, Lord. So, Lord, please bless us, each of us, as we go through the rest of the week, that it is not just today that we are focusing on you, thinking about you, and trying to follow after you, Jesus, but that we can actually take this to help keep us stoked, keep the fire burning inside us, and that we can go out through the week and at least accomplish one little thing for you, if not more. Please magnify anything that we are, anything that we offer you. Please bring that, the glory to you, Lord, because that's where it's at. Lord, please bless all those who are not quite aware of who you are yet. They know of you, but they don't know who you really are, Lord. And Lord, just please be with our special prayers as Shelby has told us that his youngest son Theodore. He's very, very new, and already has several problems that are being addressed. Lord, please help that the surgery went correctly, that there's no setbacks, and everything will be that they'll have a speedy recovery. Lord, please be with not just Shelby's, but I don't have children, but I would definitely add Levi's children. Help us to anyone who's in their lives, help us to be role models for them. Help guide Levi and Marty's hands for his children, and Shelby's hand. He can only do so much, so just give him the guidance of, ultimately he can't do it all, but at least help him have security knowing that what he is doing for his son, Edwin, Blake, whatever his son is. Lord, I'm still a little confused. But please help him understand that he can't do it all, but he doesn't have to do it all. Send somebody or send someone to help them get through these challenging times. Lord, we do this all in your precious name. Lord, we love you, and I know you love us more than we love you, so help us to just realize that and go about our day. We do this all in your precious name, dear Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.